Thursday. I'm a recovering addict named Josh. I'm extremely grateful for the only promise of Narcotics Anonymous, which is the freedom from active addiction. Thanks to the previous speaker. I just want to give a special shout out to the convention committee for seeing something in me that I usually don't see in myself, for giving me this opportunity and giving me the honor to carry the message of Narcotics Anonymous, which is that any addict can stop using drugs, lose the desire to use, and find a new way to live, man. I am so extremely grateful for that. This reminds me, there was a Scottish poet that said, to always give without remembering and receive but never forget. To always give without remembering and receive but never forget. And I will never, ever forget what I have been receiving from Narcotics Anonymous for 4 years, 4 months, and 10 days. I will never, ever forget what I have been receiving from the men and women from Narcotics Anonymous, men like Wallace, men like George, the more experienced members that have poured what they have found and learned through Narcotics Anonymous into me on a daily basis. I will never, ever, ever forget where I came from, man. I thought I was going to die in a bridge under a bridge with a needle in my arm, man. I was okay with that. I fully resigned to the fact that I was going to die a using junkie. And I will never forget when H&I came in and told me I never have to use again. They told me that I never have to use again no matter how I feel. And I'm so grateful for that. So I take this very seriously. If anybody knows me, they know I do love to speak, right? Because this is my passion. I am told I'm a very good communicator. I can articulate very well. Where I'm from, where I grew up, just like my man over here, I'm from Long Island, New York. And where I grew up, I had to speak loud in order to be heard. Right? I spoke fast. You know why I spoke fast? I prided myself on having fast conversations with slow-thinking people in order to get the upper hand. Right? That's where I come from, and I have used that and utilized that and turned that and turned it into an asset so I can efficiently and effectively carry this message that has brought me out of the pits of despair. I don't know about anybody else. I'm here to share my story, my experience, strength, and hope of recovery. I'm not here to tell you how to get clean. I'm not here to tell you what to do to get clean or how to stay clean. I'm here to tell you how I got clean. And I'm here to tell you how I stay clean. All right, so I'm very grateful for that. So if I do offend you, this is just me. Talks about it in the literature. We have to be ourselves. And this is me. I'm high strung. I'm animated. I don't need caffeine to get me going. Right? But I do use a lot of it anyway. But that's a whole nother story. So if you are new, let me do this real quick. If you got less than a year, please raise your hand. Nice, Scott. Now check this out. We're gonna flip this around. If you got more than a year, raise your hand and keep your hands up. Now the people with less than a year, look around the room right now. These are the people that you need to get next to, right? Because the literature says that our only hope is to live by the example of others who have faced our dilemma and have found a way out. So anybody with their hand up is facing and have faced their dilemma, and they are finding a way out. So if you are new, if you have less than a year, welcome. But you need to do some things up in here, man. Right? Well, I'm going to say I come right from the literature. You know why? Because the literature has never steered me wrong. Right? And where I got clean in Florida, I don't know about Reno, but in Florida, the Fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous has some gray areas. Right? If I ask 100 addicts the solution, I'm going to get 99 different answers. The literature is controlled for a reason. Right? It is actually based on our second tradition of group conscience. It's a collective information. So in the 5th chapter in the basic text, what can I do? It will specifically point out some examples, and I'm gonna use them. There's go to a meeting a day for the first 90 days. Go to a meeting a day for the first 90 days. And I'm sure in Florida, I can't say anything about Reno, but in Florida, you hear the 90 and 90 cliche, right? Not a lot of people say go to a meeting a day for the first 90 days. But it was important that I read that because I'm the addict that's going to manipulate some things. So if I did a 90 and 90, you know what I do? I do 2 meetings on Friday so I could take Saturday off. So it was important for me to go to a meeting a day for the first 90 days, every day. Right? There was another philosopher that says that we are what we most repeatedly do. So me go to a meeting every day for the first 90 days started for me to get some good habits. Right? So when I went to that meeting a day for the first 90 days, it started to become a routine. And routine creates habits. And habits build character. And character brings change. And we need a personality change if we are ordered to stay clean. It says in the basic text, I don't make a lot of this stuff up. I make some of it up. But I don't make a lot of it up. Right? So it was important for me to go to that meeting a day for the first 90 days. 90 days is a season, and things change in the season. So what happened on the 91st day, you're never going to guess what I did. Never guess what I did. On the 91st day, I went to a 91st meeting. Right? It was pretty much that simple. The next suggestion is that we get phone numbers and we use the phone numbers. Phone numbers were important. You know why? Because the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. And when I got here, I didn't know what without parallel meant. It was suggested to me that I start looking some words up. Because if I don't really comprehend the literature, if I don't get an internal understanding of what people are saying, and I'm just parroting words, then am I really taking it in? Am I really having that personality change that we just talked about? So without parallel actually means that nothing can stand next to it. There is like no other. So nobody can identify to me like another recovering addict, right? Nobody understands me like my boy Chris. Nobody can really relate to the pain that I've been through like Lisa. Not my rabbi, not the therapist, certainly not the judge, not the probation officer. Nobody can relate to me and my pain like another recovering addict. So it was important for me to get the phone numbers, not only that, and use the phone numbers. Because when my butt was on fire, I called another addict to help me guide me way out, right? Because we must smash the illusion that we can do this alone. So I need to follow those footprints that you more experienced members have already placed in the sand of time. I have to do that, and I have to follow you guys, so I needed your phone numbers to reach out and talk to you. The third one is that we got a home group. I shout out my home group. I do it every time I share. I'm part of Boys to Men Forest area of Narcotics Anonymous. Right? It's a nice, intimate men's meeting. We meet every Saturday morning, Central Florida. If you're ever in Florida, you can hit me up. And it's literature-based. And that home group did a lot of things in my recovery. Right? That home group was a pivotal change for me. Right? Because it not only was it men, and it really allowed me to learn what intimacy was. Because when I first got here, I had some distorted views. I thought intimacy had to do with sex. Right? It comes to find out that intimacy has nothing to do with sex. As a matter of fact, the most intimate relationships I have are with other men. And I'm a heterosexual. So the most intimate relationships I have today are with other men. If you told me that 5 years ago, I would have said you were smoking crack again. Right? But it's true. And Boys to Men gave me that. Intimacy, as a matter of fact, I believe that the relationships that I have today live and die on the level of intimacy that I allow into them. Do you really know where I am? Because you can't tell me where to go if you don't know where I'm at. So my home group did that. It gave me some accountability. Not only that, they gave me some commitment. Right? I started making coffee. I started chairing meetings. I became GSR. I became policy chair of area. I don't know about you guys, but I suffer from an inadequacy problem. I suffer from a problem of never feeling like I'm good enough. So when I made that coffee, I felt good. When I chaired that meeting, I felt good. I felt accomplished. I felt like I did something. And it started to boost up my self-esteem. The fourth one is that we get a sponsor. I got a sponsor in Narcotics Anonymous because How It Works told me I have to. They said, if you want what we have to offer and you're willing to make the effort to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. These are the principles that make our recovery possible. So I can't take these steps without my sponsor. My sponsor is my GPS, and he guides me through the 12 steps to Narcotics Anonymous. The 12 steps to Narcotics Anonymous are our solution. It's in the literature. They are our survival kit in the literature. They are our best guarantee against relapse in the literature as well. Because you know what? I have a Josh problem. Right? I've put the substance down. Right? It says that Narcotics Anonymous is a non-profit fellowship of men and women for whom drugs had become a major problem. Well, guess what? Now that we don't use drugs, or I don't use drugs, they're no longer the source of the problem. The problem is me. I am the ultimate problem. So I need a solution. There's a Just for Today daily meditation that says our ultimate solution is the steps. And I use that ultimate solution from an ultimate weapon. An ultimate weapon, my sponsor. He guides me through the 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous, which, guess what? Introduces me to ultimate authority, which is God, as I understand, because that's what I believe this whole thing is. It's supposed to align me to become my highest self and align with God's will. So that fourth suggestion is pretty important for me. And that fifth suggestion is, most importantly, we don't use. So it doesn't matter what I got going on in my life, I don't use over it. It don't matter that I haven't seen my daughter in 8 years. I do not use over it. It's Father's Day. I can't speak to her. I don't use over it. It don't matter I didn't get the contract. I don't use over it. It don't matter I think she's cheating on me. I don't use over it. Because, let's do a survey in here. Raise your hand if you ever regretted being clean. Well, we're going to flip it, right? Raise your hand if you ever regretted using. Right? I can never remember waking up and regretting being clean. So being like using doesn't sound like a good idea to me today. And that's just me personally. So I always feel that it's a big responsibility and it's an obligation to prone in on those 5 suggestions if I got enough time. You guys gave me 45 minutes, so I think I got enough time. That's why I proned in on them real quick. But this topic, highest self. When I first heard it, when Lance first told me, I was like, highest self. I was like, damn, I got a lot of experience with highest self, huh? When I took the first hit, and woo, fucking trains were coming, that's my highest self. That's where my mind went. My sponsor wanted to tell me that my highest self is the best version of myself, right? The best version of Josh. Well, if we're going to go high, guess what? We had to be low at some point. So I'll talk about the lowest version of Josh real quick. Before the drugs, right? The lowest version of Josh that robbed money out of his mother's pocketbook in order to get candy for the neighborhood. Because I didn't feel accepted. Because I had to put on the mask. I had to get validation from other people. Because I was low. I had a low idea of myself. I just talked about it. That inadequacy, that low self-esteem, that image that I had that was altered at some point. Right? Because I believe, like the literature says, that some of us believe that we were addicted long before we used the substance, that we were addicts long before. And I truly believe that. I was addicted to attention. From attention, it went to candy. From candy to video games, from video games to sports. From sports to women, so on and so on and so on. Right? So, and then it led me to a substance. Right? It led me to a substance. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that it led me to something that brought me to my knees to give me the opportunity to be introduced to this new way to life. Narcotics Anonymous has breathed life into my soul. But my lowest self, when there was nothing high, there was nothing good about me robbing my family. Right? There was nothing good about me kicking doors down. There was nothing good about robbing pharmacies. There was nothing good about doing crazy things. Right? That's my lowest self. My lowest self. I didn't care what you thought of me at the end. I didn't care as long as I could get the next one. As long as I could get the next one in me. Right? Because I had to get something inside of me to get outside of me to begin with. So if I'm going to bring out a little bit of this literature, like I just said, it's important to me. And I know in Florida, not Reno, but in Florida, people, when I bring up the book or other people bring up the book, we usually get a little bit of criticism. But I'll tell you what, I never went to a crack house without my stem. So I'll never, ever come up to share without a piece of literature. These are the tools that have provided me this new way to live. So when living clean, it'll talk about this. We're talking about lowest self. It talks about the person we see in the mirror may bear little resemblance to the version of ourselves that other people know. When we are locked in self-obsession, we may have no idea of the damage we are doing to the people around us or even to ourselves. When I was locked in active addiction using drugs, I didn't think, listen, I was always I thought I was fooling everybody. Right. I was always the last one to know that everybody knew that I was using. Right? I looked in the mirror, I look good. Well, I show you some pictures, man. I was 120 pounds. Right? I looked like death, knocking on death's door. But I thought I looked good. I couldn't see that. I couldn't recognize that the version of myself was wreaking havoc on the people that loved me. That was a tornado. The sixth step talks about it. Talks about the tornado that we have caused in other people's lives. And that's what I did, man. That's what I did. And I didn't realize how low I actually was. I didn't realize how much damage I was causing to my mother. She waking up at night, didn't know if I was alive or dead. I didn't realize how much damage I was causing in my brother's spirit. I didn't realize how much damage I was causing in my daughter's mother's heart. I didn't realize all of that. Because I was locked in self-obsession, like it just said. I was locked in getting the next one. I passed that threshold from living to use to using to live. I had to get one in order to get to the next one. So I could remember that. That was a low version of me. And I'm here, I didn't want to get clean. I'm here by a vehicle of grace that was unexpected in my life. In Florida, we have something that's called a Marchman Act. I was forced to get clean. I suffered from 2 fatal overdoses and woke up in an ambulance again, not knowing my name. And they sent me to treatment, which we don't endorse in Narcotics Anonymous. This is my story. They sent me to treatment, and they forced me to get clean. I didn't want to get clean. This happened totally without my permission. But I'm grateful for hospitals and institutions that came in and told me that I never had to use again. Now, here I am in Central Florida in a horse town. I just told you I'm from Long Island, New York. So there's a guy that H&I came in. He was a black guy. He was a white country guy. They're telling me I don't have to use again. My disease is running circles in my head. Right? I'm disqualifying the messenger before he can even deliver the message. Right? Because my disease will weaponize our differences and throw a wedge in anything that's good or has the potential of being good in my life. So that's what the disease did. The disease told me, oh, you guys are from Ocala. Man, I used to rob pharmacies and kick down doors. You guys are out here cow tipping and doing mushrooms. You don't know me. You can't relate to me. You can't tell me what to do. But I'm grateful that I was mandated to that treatment center, that it gave me enough time away from the substances, that it gave me enough clarity to actually give myself a break. To say, oh man, I might be able to do this. I might be able to stop using drugs. And I might be able to lose that desire to use. Forget finding a new way to live. Not at that point. I just wanted to lose the desire. Has anybody ever sat in a facility, an institution, or whatever, and had that obsession run your mind? Right? Because obsession, we know what it is. Obsession is loading the gun. Compulsion is pulling the trigger. So I remember obsessing, wanting to use over and over. But I can't pinpoint when it was lifted. But I do know the moment it was lifted that I thought to myself that I could do this too. If you guys can stay clean, if you guys can find a new way to live, so can I. So I did that. I got clean. I followed the 5 suggestions. When I got out of treatment center, I did almost everything you guys asked except for getting the relationship in the first year. I don't think anybody does that, but if you do, that's great. But I did all that, man. And then I was literally wreaking havoc in other people's lives now clean. Nobody can relate to that, right? It's only me. Right? But I was doing I was a womanizer, right? I was robbing from Home Depot, still clean now, clean, right? I was stealing things, right? I always wanted to make myself look better than because I never felt good enough, right? So it wasn't until I got to some work up in here in Narcotics Anonymous, and here it'll talk about it. When we are in crisis, we try all kinds of escapes and excuses before we resort to the steps. We can be intolerant, angry, defenseful, vengeful, guilty, and resentful, testing the patience and tolerance of those around us. The only way out, there's only one way out. The only way out is through. We must roll up our sleeves and get to work. So that's what I did in Narcotics Anonymous. I rolled up my sleeves and I started to get to work. Because there's different levels of freedom here. Now, I don't know about you, but I've experienced different levels of freedom. I just told you I couldn't really sustain a relationship. So what happened is they told me get a plant. I got a plant, and then I got a pet. I got a dog, right? So my dog, he stays in the cage. He's locked in the cage. When I come home, I let him out. And he jets out of the cage, runs around the living room and the kitchen, his wags all tail, and he thinks he's free. but he doesn't realize that he's in a bigger cage. Does that make sense? That's what happened when I got clean. Right? I started getting some stuff back, got a license, got a truck, got some good clothes, right? I was taking showers. I thought I was good. I thought I was free. But I didn't realize or recognize or identify that I was in a bigger cage. That like I needed the keys to get out. And the keys to get out were the 12 Steps of Narcotics Anonymous. The 12 Steps of Narcotics Anonymous introduced me into the last part of our message, which is finding a new way to live, which will inevitably get me to my highest self. But I had to do some work up in here. I had to do some real work. I've been through the 12 Steps of Narcotics Anonymous a few times. Right? And we know, like I said, I was low, and in order to get high, I got to go up. And for me, the only way up is through the steps. So I had to do around the steps, and then I had to realize there was more freedom to be found. Right? Because I know, listen, for me, I update my phone once a month at least. So the first round of steps ain't good enough. Right? Because I got to go through a second round of steps, and that second round of steps won't be good enough or wasn't good enough. I got to continually to try to grow. Because I'm a true believer that as long as I'm an addict, there will always be one area, at least one area of my life that is unmanageable. Nobody can identify, right? I know, for me, if I'm an addict, there's going to be at least one area of my life that is unmanageable. My disease will manifest itself in ways that I can't really identify until it's too late. Right now, I'm dealing with a white substance that isn't a narcotic. Right now, I can't put M&Ms down. Right now, I can't stop eating cakes. Right? Because I suffer from the disease of addiction that will show itself in various and multiple amounts of ways. My man was talking about Rolexes. You don't want to know how many watches I got. You don't want to know the obsession that I have with Reebok Classics. Yeah. Right? These are all manifestations of the disease of my addiction. Right? And it's crazy. Because the only defense against all that is, for me, is the 12 Steps of Narcotics Anonymous. And I have to be vigilantly working them, right? And in order to be successful, for me, up in here, I have to do a lot of work. And I'm not talking about work on the outside. Right? I'm talking about stuff on the inside. Right? I'm talking about like things that define me as a man today. I'm talking about like how many other people am I helping out? I'm talking about how good am I doing? Can I really tell you if I feel scared? Can I really tell you that I don't know what to do? Or am I going to put on the facade? Am I going to keep wearing that mask? Am I going to put up this phony image that everything's all right? Right? But through the 12 Steps of Narcotics Anonymous, it's given me the ability to become successful up in here. I'm not talking about financially either. I'm talking about loving Josh for who Josh is. Because I never knew who I was. It wasn't until a few 4 steps that I finally got the freedom to be the person that God has always intended me to be. Let me get a drink. I'm getting a little parched. So I have to also recognize that God has me on an assignment. Right? There was another good author that said there's 2 great moments in every person's life. He says the moment that you were born and the moment you discover why. The moment I discovered why I was born, man. The moment that I found purpose, because that's what it is, it's purpose. Like I said, I was always a taker. I would take anything from anybody. Today I like to change my look at that, and I say I can be a giver as well. Right? I can be successful up in here. And listen, you probably don't want to hear this, and I might say some things that offend some people, and that's okay. But I have found that successful people have an obsession with writing the next chapter in their life, while unsuccessful people have an obsession with reading the last chapter of their life. Oh, you didn't like that, did you? I know somebody didn't like it. It's okay. I believe that. I have an obsession to write the next chapter of my life, to write the next page. And that's okay. I am a very driven person, Right? And I just, like my higher self just wrote another chapter, right? I just had a baby. He's 4 months old, and I'm not with the woman that I had the baby with. So my highest self is putting the principles before the personalities, right? Like the highest self is putting my son before my self-centered thoughts, right? Providing for her, providing for him before myself. Right? That's the highest version of Josh. The highest version of Josh is helping a sponsee when he needs help. Right? The highest version of Josh is helping my brother when he calls me. The highest version of Josh is getting that 12-step call at 12:30 at night, and I just worked 15 hours and going and doing the 12-step call. Right? That's the highest version of Josh. Right? It's not like, so I have become very financially, I would say, successful. But like that doesn't define me, right? All that false image that I was, or false information that I was given. What defines a successful man or a man is how much money is in his bank account. Right? That's a lie. What defines a man is what kind of watch he's got on. What kind of watch you got on, Wallace?
This is an Apple Watch.
That's a lie. That's a lie. So what kind? Like how many other men are scared of me? That's what defines a man. That's a lie. That's all misinformation. Misinformation that conditioned my mind, right? And programmed my thinking to think the way I think. And what happens when I think the way I think, it makes me feel the way I feel. And when I feel the way I feel, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to act the way I act, right? Always in self-obsession, always in self-centeredness. It wasn't until that I started boosting up my level to my highest self that I was able to put other people's needs before my self-centered wants, right? Because listen, I have some goals up in here, right? But I can't have uphill goals with downhill habits. I got to keep moving forward, right? And I might hurt some people along the way. Because you know what? I've found in Narcotics Anonymous in Florida, not in Reno, I've found that everybody wants to see you grow until you have the possibility of outgrowing them. Oh, that might have hurt somebody too. Because everybody wants to see you grow until you might outgrow them. Like, can you be happy for the next guy that's doing better than you? Or that makes it seem that he's doing better than you? Well, I know for me, sometimes I can't. Sometimes my jealousy will kick in. Sometimes my envy will kick in. Sometimes that false pride, sometimes that ego will kick in. And that'll shoot me back down to my lowest self. But guess what? Practicing principles of Narcotics Anonymous always gives me another chance. And if I don't use, then I really got a chance. But I am extremely confident that if I pick one up, and all bets are off. Because I know if I think that it's hard to stay away from the first one, well, good luck staying away from the second one. Because we already know 1 is too many, 1,000 is never enough. Well, guess what? It's not the 1,000th that will take me out. It's the first one that will inevitably result in a snowball effect and cause a chain reaction to start hurting everybody around me once again. And I am grateful that Narcotics Anonymous has given me the ability to really try to reach my highest self. And listen, I've made a lot of mistakes up in here. Like my brother said earlier, the only thing that I have done perfectly is not use. But listen, my mistakes become successes, right? I own a little construction business. It's not an endorsement either. But I remember when I was growing up and I first started working and framing on houses, and my first boss, his name was Ron. He was a French-Canadian. And I remember he used to wear open-toed sandals framing houses. And I asked him, Ron, I was like, Ron, how have you become so successful in carpentry and building a business? And he told me, Josh, you got to be able to execute good plans. And I was like, okay, I can execute good plans. Well, how do you execute good plans, Ron? Tell me, boss, how do you do it? And he's like, well, you got to get some experience, Josh. I was like, okay, cool. How do I get experience, boss? Tell me how to get the experience. He told me you got to make bad plans, Josh. Right? So I got to make bad plans or bad decisions to get the experience in order to make good decisions in the long run to become successful, right? As a matter of fact, listen, Listen, if you're here and you're new, and get the mistakes out the way now. Get the bad decisions out the way now. If you used, it's okay. Come back. Keep coming back, man. If you cheated on your girl, it's okay. You got another chance, right? Get the bad mistakes out of the way now. As a matter of fact, let your bad decisions be the mortar in the wall that you can build to success, man. Let those bad decisions be a block in the foundation that you can build a successful life here in Narcotics Anonymous and in life in general. I am a true believer of that, man. Because listen, today is the first day of the rest of your life. Right? I can't worry about yesterday. It's over with. I can't really focus on tomorrow. I got to take action today. Today is the day. Narcotics Anonymous, it says it in the book, is a program of action, not theory. Right? I can't think my way into a new way of living. We have to live our way into a new way of thinking. I have to do work here. I have to do the work. Listen, I know for me there's hope. Right? Hope for me is that there's something better behind what I'm facing today. Hope is the game changer in Narcotics Anonymous. It's why it's our message. Our message is hope and the promise of freedom. Hope is the catalyst that can set you on the trajectory to be successful in here. I truly believe it. Listen, I am living proof, and everybody in here is living proof, if you're clean, that Narcotics Anonymous works. 5 minutes? My sponsee brother gave me 5 minutes, so I will shut it down. We'll get the landing gear out. Let me come down a little bit. So I'll end like this. So there was a farmer that grew great quality corn. Right? Check it out, right? So a farmer that grew great quality corn. And every year, as a matter of fact, this farmer would win an award for the best grown corn in the state of Illinois. Right? And one year, a reporter interviewed this farmer, and during the interview, he found out an interesting fact. He found out that the farmer, every season, would give his best seed of corn to all of his neighbors. His best seed of corn to all of his neighbors. The reporter was so confused. He said, I don't understand. How can you afford to give your best seed of corn to all your neighbors if you're in competition for this award? And the farmer looked back and he chuckled and he said, you must know nothing about growing corn. Because during the season, the wind comes up and takes the ripening seed and swirls it throughout the fields. So if my neighbors are to grow inferior corn, the wind will cross-pollinate my corn and eventually degrade the quality of my corn. So if I want to grow the best quality corn, I have to have my neighbors grow the best quality corn as well. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So I say that to say this. In Narcotics Anonymous, in life in general, if I want to be successful, if I expect to be happy, joyous, and free, I have to help my fellow addicts become successful, become happy, joyous, and free. I don't get higher by bringing people lower. My light will not shine brighter by putting others in darkness. If I want to get to my highest self, I have to help others around me get to their highest self as well. So I'm a recovering addict named Josh. Thanks for letting me share.